This month I wrote and put out the first 2 chapters of a story called Loose Ends, which you can read on Tapas, a webcomic and web novel hosting site. A fantasy story with a lot of D&D inspiration. It's not the most noteworthy thing, but it becomes a little more noteworthy when you realize that the only other things on my page are a short story released in March, which I wrote 2 years ago, and a mediocre detective story I wrote and released in 2021. That's a year-long gap between Joker's Wild and Moonlit Rain, and a 2-year gap between Moonlit Rain and Loose Ends. So, what's up with that? Real quick, there's not a visual format that I felt lended itself well to this video, so you're going to be watching me play Hades 2, since I've put 50 plus hours into the early access. At its heart, this gap is caused by a distinct fear of being perceived. To be perceived is to know judgment, and there are few things as terrifying as the judgment of another person. These stories you see here aren't the only ones I put up. Tapas once held numerous works of mine, one with over 100 chapters. I removed all of these over time. The first to go was an old story, a much worse fantasy story that I'm honestly not very proud of. There was also an adventure story, the subject of an experiment to write 100 chapters in 100 days. This was achieved but led to subpar quality. Still love the cast though. There was a mediocre slice-of-life webcomic, an old post-apocalypse story, more I can't recall, I'm sure. Perhaps the biggest loss in all this was Aero stuff, a small series of essays and a short Q&A about being aromantic. Unlike the others, which varied heavily in quality and were largely not cared about, Aero stuff was a genuine loss. When I first discovered I was aromantic, you'll note I said discovered not became, Aero stuff ended up being an important part of my journey to better understand myself. I started Aero stuff as a series in the hopes of spreading information about my orientation just a little so that others who were unaware like me might have a better hope of discovering the information sooner. And now those essays, that writing that meant so much to me and still does, is gone. Tucked away in a folder on a drive. Happy Pride Month. Why? I've never put out writing I wasn't happy with in the moment, so why have I taken them down? In the end, it all comes back to that fear of being perceived. This is a common sentiment being expressed online, which was especially exacerbated by the pandemic, a time in which many people were suddenly able to stop being perceived consequence-free. As Nana Baah wrote for Vice in 2021, "The thought of being seen again is scary. Over the course of an unpredictable pandemic, a series of life-changing events happened to me at breakneck speed. Dealing with most of it alone, without questions on other people's opinions, has been freeing." Returning to normal life was a daunting task, and 3-4 years out from that time, the effects are still felt in the mentality of many. To be judged by others is already a stressful experience, but I think the quarantine perhaps made many realize just how bad it was. And putting your art out online is offering a slice of yourself up for the entire world to partake and judge. It's not just writing, although writing is the lens through which I want to discuss this because it's where I have the most personal experience. And if you don't think writing is an art form, quick aside, you need to reevaluate your relationship with art and how you qualify something for that definition. Creating art is a deeply personal experience. Your personality influences the things you create in every moment of their creation. Consequently, it becomes profoundly difficult to allow others to judge this work. Because they are no longer simply judging the work, they are judging you, a part of you. Your thoughts, your ideas, your expressions, those words are yours, those brushstrokes are yours, and it is terrifying that someone might judge them to be less than good. This can drive young creators to never release some of their best work because they fear how others will judge it. In a way, this is a manifestation of your own judgment. You have judged your work as subpar and fear others will do the same. There's an essay written in Medium by Milo Rodel, I hope I'm pronouncing these names right, in 2023, discussing how we are perceived by others with a focus on trans identities and other labels. Do you not want to be perceived? Or do you not like the way people have been perceiving you and therefore no longer want to be perceived because they would perceive you incorrectly anyway or with judgment? Perhaps it's actually self-judgment. If others can't see it, I don't have to look at it myself either. If you, subconsciously or otherwise, judge your work to be less than perfect, you may forego posting it online for fear of how others will perceive it. There is a small piece of yourself in everything you have ever made, a portion of your very soul made manifest through words or paint or notes or what have you, a means through which you immortalize yourself as you were. But what happens when who you were stops being who you are? There is work created by an enigma who did not know she was aromantic, who did not know what D&D was, who still watched Minecraft Let's Plays and consumed media uncritically. This can create an uncomfortable dissonance. In an era of self-publishing, it can be so tempting to try and erase the old you. I personally have a minor obsession with this, routinely wiping out or covering up old traces of myself. When you have offered up a version of yourself to be judged, it can be so much harder when that judgment is given to an outdated version. And the internet has not helped with this, cultivating a culture where any individual feels entitled to give their whole, uncensored, uncritical, and quite often unfair opinion on the topic. From Tim Kreider's 2013 article, I Know What You Think of Me, hearing other people's uncensored opinions of you is an unpleasant reminder that you're just another person in the world, and everyone else does not always view you in the forgiving light that you hope they do, making all allowances always on your side. There's something existentially alarming about finding out how little room we occupy and how little allegiance we command in other people's heads. It is simply not pleasant to be objectively observed. It's like seeing a candid photo of yourself online, not smiling or posing, but simply looking the way you apparently always do, oblivious and mush-faced with your mouth open. It's proof that we are visible to others, that we are seen in all our naked silliness and stupidity. This leads to the erasure of old work, the wiping out of art you once cared about, or still do. Do not delete your old art. I know I am an example of deleting my old art. I know I am a hypocrite who actively deleted a few old works and comments while creating this. But you must not delete your old art. Let it stand as a testament to who you were and who you have become, a monument to the road you have traveled. It is better to be known and judged than to be squirreled away where no one will ever witness that art and be allowed to love it. And please remember, for all that fear of judgment, there is someone out there who will genuinely, uncritically praise and love that thing you made. It can be intimidating to share your work, to leave it for the world to see, but you simply must. And to those lookers on, who do not create themselves yet adore this art laid before you with love and kindness, please do not let your feelings go unheard. There are few greater feelings in the world than knowing someone has not just seen your work, but judged it and found that piece of you deserving of love. To leave on another quote from Mr. Rodel, not discounting the privilege I have in being able to live independently and safe from much of the harm, I suppose I'm just hoping that this message can translate over to anyone who is reading, trans or not. To know that opening up to the truth in ourselves brings a sense of self-solidarity, and improves our ability to accept others too, as we have already done it for ourselves. Lastly, a reminder that there are many ways to be seen, not just physically, through art, writing, music, dance, the work you are proud of. I feel more seen when I am unseen physically, when people can see, feel, and understand my energy, my inner world. Finding what speaks truest to you is key. This was a bit of a unique video to make. I've made another video essay before, though that one was actually about gaming, which is this channel's primary focus, really. Still, as I return from script writing to my passion in creative writing, attempting to balance the two, I find this particular concept was stuck in my head. I simply had to get it out, and I hope my words carry at least some of the meaning I intend. Thanks for listening.